In a world that often asks, what can a child become? This session asks, what must we become to ensure every child can dream? Through this session, as we journey through stories from rural India of courage, creativity, and community, I urge you to hold this question close, not just now, but in every room you step into after today. What does it truly take to raise a child? And how might we, as individuals, as systems, as a global collective, rise to meet that responsibility? Because raising a child is never a solo act. It takes more than a village, it takes all of us. Namaste from India. I, Ishta Gupta.
And I, Tushar Jha, welcome you to this session on children, session on possibilities, on what happens when education dares to believe that brilliance exists everywhere, even where the world has forgotten to look.
But before we start today, let me ask you all a question. What is the first word that comes to your mind when you think of India? You can scan the QR code as shown on the screen and give your responses. Or you can put your responses down on the chat box as well. What is the first question that comes to your mind when you think of India?
You can scan the QR code or type your responses on the chat. It can be a word, a sentence. What is the first thing that comes to your mind?
I see someone say curry, of course. Diversity, dense, yes. Celebrations, of course. Intelligence, medical, wow, yes. Sone ki chiriya. Contributions to innovation, definitely, yes. Diverse culture, yes. You can use the Mentimeter or you can continue typing on the chat box as well.
It's very interesting responses. We'll keep the slide open for another 30 seconds so that you can enter more responses. Oh, wow. We have
Wow.
food, colorful, hot weather, technology. STEM.
Vast array of spices as well, definitely.
We have a lot of foodies in the audience, Ishta, it seems like.
Yeah, I think everybody is really interested in Indian food. And we also see a lot of technology, a lot of diversity, culture in the responses. Language, of course, yes, rich in language and culture. Okay, since you all of you have given us so many responses and such interesting responses, I have another question in my mind. And to dig deeper, I'm really, really intrigued to know what is the first word that comes to your mind when you hear the word public education or public schools? In general, any public education or public schools could be from your country or from whatever you know of public education. You can type in your responses. You can use the Mentimeter, the same Mentimeter QR code, or you can type in the chat box. Oh, I also see world's largest population for the last question.
Fantastic.
Anything public is low quality opportunity. Yes. Hmm. That's interesting. Tushar, what comes to your mind when you hear public education? We have free, equity,
Sure.
broken
Uh,
in responses as well.
okay. I'm going to share in 30 seconds, Ishta. Let us just engage with a little more responses
Yeah,
that are coming.
definitely, definitely. Least common denominator. Interesting. Often a battleground in the US. I think, Daniel, that's the same for a lot of other countries. Lack of funding, stress, equality, opportunity, definitely an opportunity. Yes.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. Thanks, Ishta. In fact, Christina stole my response. The two words that come to my mind when you think of India's public education system is the scale, potential, and opportunity, right? Uh, and thank you so much, everyone, for engaging and sharing your responses. And
Yes.
as
Thank you so much, everybody.
many of you have already pointed out, when you think of India and India's population, what comes to mind is the scale and how humongous the country is. With a population of over 1.4 billion people, out of which 65% of India still lives in its villages in the rural areas, which is close to 930 million people. And when it comes to the public education system, over 70% of India's school going children rely on public schools for their education. But more importantly, a significant percent, which is over 65% of underserved and underrepresented communities, which are students from minorities, tribal communities, and economically weaker sections. They rely on public schools for their primary education. The scale of our education system is humongous. It serves over 250 million students across 1.5 million schools with 10 million teachers. But what makes it even more complex is not just the scale, it's the diversity of it. With over 6.4 lakh villages in the country, over 22 official languages, 750 plus dialects, there are vast differences in the culture, language, and economic strata of Indian children and communities. No two schools or classrooms in India look the same. Hence, the solutions can't look the same either. A one size fits all principle risks leaving many communities behind. In a landscape that is as diverse as India's, innovation has to be rooted in the context. It has to be done with and for the communities we serve.
Thank you for that, Tushar. I think we missed our slide here. Oh, yes. But carrying forward to what says, a large part of India still beats in its villages, where the roots of our culture, resilience, and potential lie. You may have heard of the powerful proverb, an African proverb, it takes a whole village to raise a child, reminding us that a child's growth is nurtured not just by family, but by the entire community.
But in our journey across the rural heartlands of Maharashtra and Andhra Pradesh, we have seen something even more profound. The boundaries of this proverb are being redefined every single day. It's not just the village anymore, it's the visionaries beyond it. We have seen dedicated government officers and administrative leaders stepping up as catalysts for change, driving access, creating opportunities, and shaping the future of education for millions of children in some of the most remote parts of the country. They are showing us that it takes more than a village to raise a child. And it is in this context that Ishta and I are here to represent Leadership for Equity, an organization dedicated towards building future ready public education systems for our children. Our organization works with the vision of building public education systems that refuse to let any child down. And we do this by improving the learning and well being of children at scale, by building the systemic capacity of government through teachers and academic leaders. Over the next 45 minutes, Ishta and I are going to share stories of how, through our partnerships with Scratch, we have seen stories of resilience and possibility shape up within India's public education system.
Acknowledging all the responses from the comments and the Mentimeter that we got, I let me tell you about India. India is not one story. It is 1,000 languages, hundreds of tribes, millions of schools, each with its own rhythm, its own beauty, its own truth. Today, we speak from one such corner of this vast, vibrant country, from the tribal and rural regions tucked between forest, rivers, and winding paths. Here, children grow up amidst rich tradition, deep community ties, and wisdom of generations. They play barefoot, think boldly, and carry questions far beyond their textbooks. But the road to education isn't always smooth. Some walk miles to reach the school. Some learn under trees when classrooms aren't available. Electricity flickers. Internet is rare. And yet, every morning they show up. Not because it's easy, but because they know learning can open doors, even if they've never seen what's on the other side. This isn't a story of struggle alone. It is a story of perseverance, of possibility, of children who can dream in color even when the world around them is still catching up. But to understand the story, you must also understand the difference in how we live and how we think. In many parts of the world, the society is built around the individual. But in India, the individual is never alone. A child belongs not just to their parents, but to the extended family, the village, the caste, the school, and the state, of course. Decisions are rarely personal, they are shared, negotiated, and influenced by many invisible hands. And that is both the challenge and the opportunity. So, let me take you through four stories through Roshni's eyes, where the system didn't just face challenges, it rose to meet with them and transform them into a opportunity. And we will, of course, go through these stories through our little Roshni. Meet Roshni. She's a 12 years old. She lives in a small tribal hamlet tucked between forested hills and winding streams, where the mornings carry bird song and the scent of wet earth, and the nights are lit with moonlight and memory. Every day begins the same. Before the sun has warmed the rooftops, Roshni is full wide awake, washing her face in the courtyard, helping her mother with morning water run, carefully balancing pots on her hips, and counting how many trips it'll take to fill the drum before stepping out for the school. But what makes Roshni's story even more extraordinary is not just what she does, but who walks besides her, her mother. For the past 7 years, she has walked 5 kilometers with Roshni to school. Not because she must, but because she chooses to. She knows the road by heart. It curves, the chatter, the shortcuts through sugarcane fields. But what she carries isn't just lunch and water. She carries her daughter's dreams. She's never used a smartphone. She's never seen a computer lab. But she teaches patience, rhythm, and kindness. She holds space for questions, for mistakes, and for ambition. And for Roshni's father, a quiet man with soils in his nails and stories in his eyes, comes from the field and sits beside her as she does her homework. He doesn't always understand the math, but he understands its importance. And every time she reads aloud, a part of him softens because she's stepping into a world he never had a map for. They've restructured their entire lives so Roshni can try, learn, and dream. And when Roshni finally reaches school, a cheerful public school with tiled roofs and peeling paint, a big banyan tree at the gate, and 60 children squeezed into one buzzing classroom, she joins her classmates, ties her plate tight, and takes her seat with pride. She is one among many, but her presence is not ordinary because Roshni is a child being raised on hope. But when she's at home, she plays snakes and ladder with her friends. She predicts outcomes, builds strategies, learns the value of if and then. When she's helping her grandmother sort grains, she's practicing pattern recognition. When she is helping with farming chores, deciding which crop goes where and when, it's sequencing in action. When she watches her older cousin braid her hair In intricate loop, she notices algorithm hidden in traditions. She was coding and using computational thinking all this while. She just didn't know. Roshni is always learning, not just from textbook, but from life itself. One fine day, walking home, she sees something glowing through a window, a computer. She stops, stares. Curiosity is stirred in her, not of fear, but of possibility. For the very first time, she didn't just ask questions. She wanted to build the answers. In that moment, Roshni didn't just see a machine. She sees a new way to build, to create, to play. She may not know the word coding yet, but she knows what it means to dream.
But Ishta, let me stop you for a minute. How is it possible for Roshni to learn computers when, in the current Indian context, only 1 in 3 public schools in rural areas actually have access to functional computers and internet? And less than 20% of teachers in public schools in rural India are actually trained to support their children to teach computer science and coding?
That's a very interesting question, Tushar. And I have all the responses with a lot of stories to tell you. And one such story is of Madhuri Sanjay Pawar, one of the teachers in the less than 20% that you mentioned. In the tribal pocket of Karwan, Nashik, a small district in Maharashtra where forests sway to stories older than time, lives Madhuri Sanjay Pawar, a public school teacher, a mother, and perhaps most importantly, a believer. When she first heard about Scratch Coding Hackathon, her heart lit up. A space to learn, to explore, to create something new. In many parts of India, motherhood is sacred, but often seen as a full stop to ambition. Like many mothers with young children, her first thought was not about if she could code, but how she could show up fully with her baby in her arms. Could she travel? Could she manage both learning and caring? The answer, as it turned out, came not just from within, but from people around her: her husband, her mother, her school, her principal, and everybody. They all said, "Yes, you can." And so, with her 6-month-old baby wrapped snug against her, three of her students beside her, and Hope tucked quietly in her bag, Madhuri ma'am boarded an early morning bus to Nashik. At the training, she balanced two worlds, one hand guiding a computer mouse for the first time, and the other gently patting her baby to sleep. She learned Scratch while translating it to her students. She paused, resumed, listened, and taught all at once. The trainers supported her. Her peers cheered her on. Her husband stepped in caring for their baby so she could dive deeper, lead stronger. And when her students' project was selected among the top 12 in the hackathon showcase, and later when they stood tall as winners of the third prize, the applause wasn't just for the code. It was for the courage, for the community, for the determination wrapped in warmth. Today, when Madhuri ma'am reflects, she says, "I am not just a coder, I'm a mother full of determination, walking hand in hand and with my children and my ambition." Her story reminds us sometimes it takes more than a village. It takes a training hall, a baby's cry, a father's belief, a team of students, a teacher who dares to dream to raise a child. And sometimes it takes more than a mother's dream to raise a whole village with her.
Wow, Ishta, that was really beautiful. If Roshni's stories tells us how children dream, Madhuri ma'am's story tells us what we must pick up in order to drive our children to dream bigger. Roshni would have loved to have a teacher like Madhuri ma'am. And from the story of a teacher, let us hear the story of a student, someone who's roughly the same age as Roshni. In a tiny tucked away hamlet in the coastal district of Sindhudurg, a district in Maharashtra where the idea of technology still seems like utopian, hope was quietly taking root. Meet Omkar, only 13 years and armed with grit and perseverance. In a place where technology seems rare and digital literacy and computer even rarer, Omkar dared to defy the status quo. With absolutely no access to formal training in computer science, Omkar took a bold leap. With the help of a teacher who believed in him, a school that backed him, and a district that wanted to support his ambitions, Omkar enrolled in the district level hackathon. What Omkar lacked in resources, he more than made up for in raw problem solving instinct. With the support of his teacher and his team, Omkar didn't just participate in the hackathon. Omkar won. That victory did not just earn them a trophy, it opened a door. For the very first time in his life, Omkar boarded a train and stepped out of his village, traveling to Pune to represent his district at the state level hackathon. That journey changed everything. Pune wasn't just a city for Omkar, it was a window into what's possible. Omkar returned transformed, his purpose awakened. He didn't just stop at his own learning, he became a spark for others. Traveling from school to school in every block in his district, Omkar has been teaching students of the same age and younger how to code using Scratch, igniting dreams and possibilities. Omkar stories tells us about the quiet revolutions unfolding in rural India, where if teachers, principals, school, and the administration rally behind the dream of a child, they can truly transform lives.
Wow, Tushar, that's one inspiring story, not just for us, but for all the Roshnis around. I remember seeing a few scratch projects that Omkar's made. They were really amazing. But at the same time, if Roshni reminds us of what lives inside every child, imagination, instinct, and curiosity, then Omkar reminds us of what happens when the potential is sparked. But children like Roshni and Omkar don't walk alone. Their dreams grow because someone holds the soil beneath them. And so we ask the question again: what does it truly take to raise a child? Sometimes it takes a teacher, sometimes it takes a chance, and sometimes it takes an entire community rising with them. Now, let's take you to a school in a district in Maharashtra where that very kind of rising unfolded. In a far away village just outside Pune, nestled among dusty fields and narrow lanes, stood a small public school, one with limited means, scarce digital access, and a future that often felt predetermined. But one teacher, Amar Khedekar, refused to accept the limits of what was. While others saw constraints, he saw potential. He enrolled himself in a course on coding and computational thinking, learning late into the night, driven by a belief that his students deserved more than a chalkboard and textbooks. And then the transformation began. Amar brought what he learned into his classroom, sparking curiosity, building skills, preparing his students for something they've never imagined before: a district level hackathon. The team entered, competed, and won. Suddenly, the story of this little school became a pride for the entire village. As they prepared to represent their district at the state level hackathon, something extraordinary happened. The entire village came together. Families pooled funds, neighbors pitched in, and a community that had never before imagined blazers for its students made sure every child and the teacher walked into that competition with pride on their sleeves and dreams in their hearts. They returned with a third prize at state level. But more than the trophy, they came back with a momentum. A local businessman, inspired by what he witnessed, donated funds to install Wi Fi across the school building, bringing digital access to every child who once had none. And by the end of the year, something even more powerful unfolded. Admissions soared. Parents from nearby villages lined up, wanting their children to be part of the school that had shown what was possible. Just 4 years ago, the school had only 10 students and was on the verge of shutting down. Today, it's a vibrant model school bustling with 180 plus students, learner, and a first choice for parents across the region. A story of revival led by belief, community, and opportunity. Because this was no longer just a story of a school, it was a story of one teacher's vision, a community's belief, and a collective uprising against limitations. Because sometimes it takes more than a village, it takes courage, collaboration, and relentless pursuit of possibility.
Thanks, Ishta, for reminding me of the story. I still clearly, vividly remember the pride in the face of Khedekar sir and his students when they got on stage wearing their shiny blazers to collect their prize at the hackathon. It truly is a fantastic example of what happens when a village comes together. And to build on this theme further, let me take you to Nashik. In the heart of Maharashtra, nestled between vineyards and valleys, Nashik, a district, has quietly been scripting a revolution, one that promises to shape the future of children in the district through the power of computer science and technology. And at the helm of this quiet revolution stands a young and passionate officer, Ms. Ashima Mittal, the administrative head of the district. Under Ms. Mittal's leadership and in partnership with Amazon India, in the year 2023-24, a computer science teacher training program was launched in the district. It wasn't just a pilot, but a bold, system wide commitment to ensure that computer science reaches every corner of the district. Over 1,100 teachers voluntarily enrolled for the program, a testament to the hunger for learning among the teachers. Through events like Hour of Code, expert sessions, and hackathons, over 18,000 students across 290 schools participated in the program, many of them holding a computer mouse for the first time, and almost all of them learning how to use Scratch for the very first time. But the real turning point came when Ms. Mittal did something unprecedented. She allocated 6,000 US dollars from the district budget to organize a district wide hackathon. The very first time a decision like this took place in Maharashtra at such a systemic level. And she didn't just stop there. She insisted on scale and inclusion, ensuring that teachers and students from every block in the district have a seat at the table and a shot at the future. This wasn't just administration in action, it was aspiration, a shining example of what happens when committed leadership, collaborative partnerships, and grassroots enthusiasm come together. Because sometimes it does not just take a village, it takes a leader who acts, it takes a system that believes, a system that invests, and a movement that refuses to let any child down. So each of these stories reminds us that transformation does not begin at scale. It begins with a spark. But I ask you, what if that spark lights across villages, blocks, and districts? We've walked you through four powerful journeys, but these stories are not in isolation. Across the state, in forgotten blocks and corners, we have seen these stories very similar to these coming alive and coming to our surface. Here are six more such moments, brief but bold, each a frame onto a larger mosaic of transformation that's happening in Maharashtra. Code on Wheels, a mobile coding lab being run by the organization Code to Enhance Learning that travels from villages to villages, ensuring digital access and coding is provided to students and communities from some of the most remotest parts of the districts. Because sometimes it takes more than a village, it takes a bus full of possibility.
From learning Scratch for the first time to mentoring 30 teachers and creating YouTube resources, Prateek Vagsar is transforming classrooms across his district.
15-year-old Dhanappa, who himself has been a hackathon winner in the past, now mentors other young students, teaching them coding, building projects like weather detector, igniting possibilities wherever he goes.
Once new to coding, twin brothers from rural tribal Maharashtra rose to become top trainers and student mentors, one even winning the first prize at the district level hackathon, lighting the way for others.
Meet Rajshri Mane, who is now popularly referred to as the heroine of our district Solapur for her achievements in computer science and computational thinking. She stood tall at the Amazon Future Engineer Summit in January 2025 that happened at Taj Palace, Delhi, sharing a panel with industry leaders and founder CEOs, showing us what's possible when a teacher becomes a trailblazer.
With a vision to transform Axis and turn his district into a hub of digital learning, S. Karthikeyan, the administrative head, facilitated and is envisioning to set up 12 model digital labs in under resourced schools in the rural parts of Maharashtra, bringing real opportunity to rural students. Because when leadership dares to dream big, entire district begins to rise.
In places where opportunities seemed distant, each of these stories began in black and white, but with an ecosystem that goes far beyond villages, and with access, skills, and opportunities to learn technology, something powerful began to shift. Light and color followed. Because when the right support meets the right spark, technology can truly bring light and color to lives of people.
We began today with a question: what must we become to ensure every child can dream? Along the way, we met Roshni, with her eyes full of questions and her world full of patterns. And we also walked alongside Omkar, whose curiosity lit up not just his life, but the lives of others around him. We listened to the heartbeat of classrooms, the courage of mothers, and the vision of teachers, and the revolutions unfolding in our forgotten corners. These weren't just stories of coding, they were stories of care, of community, of what happens when the world stops asking what a child can become and starts asking what must we become for them to thrive. If it takes a village to raise a child, then in today's world, it takes all of us. Every teacher who stays late, every policymaker who believes in equity, every technologist who designs with empathy, every neighbor who sees promise in a child who hasn't yet been seen. So, as we close, we ask you for your commitment. What will you do so the Roshnis and Omkars in your corner of the world doesn't just dream but dares? So I would like all of you to take a moment, reflect, and tell us what is the one step you will take to make sure every child is there and make sure no child is left out of possibility. I would request you all to type your responses to this question in the chat box with your country and tell us about your commitment to this question. You can write down with your name and the country that you are coming from. What is that one commitment that you would like to make to ensure every child can dream? What is your part to make sure that you commit to making sure every student can dream and you raise the village. Okay, we have Kazi Fazli Azim saying collaboration and inspiration. This is how change happens. Thank you so much. Kunal Dhangar saying create more opportunities and exposure for our kids and stakeholders. Kunal Dhangar is from India. Mike Futzel, not sure if I'm pronouncing it right, but he says, I organize a Scratch AG on a voluntary basis. That's really great. Mike, if you could also tell us what would you do from today and how will you make sure that every child dreams? That'll be really great. We have Sai Prasad saying work relentlessly with government systems for driving systemic investment of funds and human resources. Wow, that is something. Toria saying, I believe I can make a change by exposing students to more opportunities via community events and informing our principal of activities that are similar to these stories to get more community members into school and to share their successes. Wow, that's really great.
Thanks, Tori.
Toria, please share those activities with us. Also, we'll also look forward to such activities. Iman says, I will do everything to make sure that every child in Bermuda that is interested has the opportunity to learn how to create through local scratch hackathons. Wow, that's so inspiring.
Thanks, Iman. We should definitely connect to exchange ideas on how both of us do hackathons. Would love to hear how it happens in Bermuda as well.
Sagrika says, from India, keep students at the heart of each program we design, research, and implement. Definitely. Stanislava, my dream is to co create a crowdsourced offline scratch powered, localized, culturally relevant interactive curriculum that is constructivist and constructionist and supports peer to peer learning, peer and teacher professional development that could be included in Colibri for access to all students and mentors. Wow. We should really connect. I think we'll have a lot of great ideas to share.
Thank you so much for sharing your responses. You can continue to, right? We'll keep the slides open for another minute. All right, great. Thank you so much, everyone, for sharing the responses. Apologies if we could not read through all of them, but we would love to engage with all of you because we have shared stories from our context. And we are very, very sure that each of you holds such powerful stories from the ground. Our intention is to create a community where we can amplify these stories and also learn and inspire from each other, right? So if you have similar stories or similar examples of how you have seen the entire community coming together to create opportunities and access for students from underserved communities, please write to us with both of our email IDs mentioned, or you can write to us at info@leadershipforequity.org. We would love to connect, and our intention is to create a community so that we can keep this conversation on.
I'm just reading all your comments on the chat box, and it's really inspiring and heart touching to see all of that. And it'll be really great if all of you could also reach out to us with your stories of what happens in your school, in your communities, and what in your areas. And then we can have this small little community where we can share ideas and how we can do our bit to make sure every child can dream. That's great. We're also open to Q&A right now. So if you have any questions for us, you can put them down in the chat box and we're happy to answer. Thank you so much. You have a Q&A box for the questions. You can put your questions in the Q&A box and then we can respond to your questions. If there are anything that you would want us to answer, then we're happy to share.
Emily has mentioned in Papua New Guinea, working with the government is quite hard, but creating opportunities and exposure is what I would start with. Thank you, Emily. We should definitely connect. As we were sharing, Leadership for Equity also works with the government. So we would love to share ideas and discuss and understand from each other's context. So, Emily, happy to connect with you. We've left our email IDs here. Uh, so we can share context and our experiences of working with the government and if there's anything that we can try.
Okay, we have a question by Kazi. It says, how do you address the language issue? What language do you teach Scratch in, particularly in villages without English, or is it English education throughout the rural areas? Tushar, would you like to answer this?
Sure, sure. Sir. Thank you, Kazi, for asking that question. But no, as I shared right at the beginning, right? I mean, we have like 22 official languages and multiple dialects. Schools and rural schools, particularly the public schools, they work in the vernacular medium. The medium of instruction is not English. Um, but the advantage of Scratch or teaching technology is that it's agnostic of the language. So the training that we provide is in the local language. For example, for all the stories that we shared from Maharashtra, the medium of instruction is Marathi. So our team, as well as the teachers that we work with, they are proficient in that language, and we try to customize our offerings in a way that language is not a barrier, and we are able to teach them the principles of coding or platforms of coding and computational thinking in the language that they are comfortable in and they're native to. Yeah. Our programs are in localized languages.
And especially with Scratch, how it's more handy is all the blocks are in colors. So we teach teachers and students color based, so that it's easier for them to navigate and use the blocks.
Yeah, in fact, that reminds me, Ishta recently developed, she herself made like a board game on computational thinking, which we've been using in tribal pockets in Maharashtra.
Okay, so Kazi says Scratch blocks can write and we just need to teach them example the local languages to Scratch. So do they type this on the keyboard? Hence, are the keyboards localized? Do you have local fonts, local languages? So, Kazi, we have the instructions and the training in the localized language, and as much as we want, the fonts and the keyboards cannot be in the local language at the moment. But we are doing our bit to make sure that coding and especially block-based coding reaches every bit of it, bit of and part of the rural and tribal India. I hope that answers your question. If we have any more questions, we're happy to answer.
Okay, I'm bringing this back near radar. Info at leadershipforequity.org. Please do write to us with stories, questions, or any experiences or potential collaborations that you would want to have. We would love to have and continue this dialogue. Uh, Thank you so much for giving Ishta and I this opportunity to share about the work uh, that Leadership for Equity is doing in partnership with Scratch Foundation. Uh, and thank you so much for your commitment towards ensuring education reaches every corner of the world. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.